Good morning. Hi, this is Jason Lipfeld, and welcome to the Hostos Student Leadership Academy Winter Workshop Series for 2024. As I've been mentioning a couple times this week, it's our 16th anniversary. We've been doing this for a long time, and we're happy that we could be here with you today. Every year that we do it in the winter, there's always something that comes up. I know a lot of us talked about the weather yesterday in the afternoon. It wasn't snow, it was rain, but it was pretty harsh and it came down pretty hard. So I'm actually working remotely today. So my lighting's a little different. I apologize for that. I hope all of you are safe. I hope everybody in your family is good and safe. And then we also had to change a shift. Golvis a former student was supposed to speak, but he wasn't able to do so. I reached out in an emergency situation to my good friend Brian Rashid. It turns out he's in San Francisco, which is why he looks a little tired, right? Because it's early in the morning there. It's much earlier than it is here. But I'm glad that Brian was able to join us. He's an extraordinary individual. He has this whole dynamic. I don't want to call it a corporation because you're not really a corp, but he's a podcaster. He's an artist. He's a writer. He has this great history, this great story that he tells. He's not going to do that today. I think he's going to work with you on getting some of your stories out, so that you can look at this new year in a new way. And so I don't want to waste any more of his time. I want to honor your time, and I'm going to turn it over to my good friend Brian Rashid. And thank you, Brian, so much for being able to do this.
Thank you, Jason. It's always a pleasure to be with all of you, and thank you for all of you that are here. It is the sun has not come up yet here in San Francisco, and I am doing an Airbnb, and for some reason she doesn't have any overhead lights. So this is literally the best that we can do for the moment. And thanks for getting cozy with me here on this rainy morning in San Francisco, pre-sunset or pre-sunrise, I should say. So thank you for being here. I absolutely love working with Hostos, with Jason, with CUNY students. I'm a proud CUNY grad myself. I graduated from CUNY Law back in 2009. Oh, that's crazy. And I've been doing these workshops with Jason and the leadership committee for the last probably 12 years. And so it's really a pleasure to be here. And I know we have a couple of hours together, and I want to make it fun. I want to make it entertaining. I want to make it helpful. And so just, really quick background about myself. Oh, and also I see that I don't see anyone that has their camera on, which is fine if that's your strong preference. If you are willing to show your face on camera, it makes things a lot more personal, um, as opposed to looking at strange black boxes. So if you feel comfortable with that, that'd be great. But obviously it's up to you. So really quick background story about who I am, just to before we get into your stories and the crux of like this new year idea. Um, as I mentioned, I went to CUNY Law School. I thought I wanted to be the mayor of New York City, and so that was my motivation for going to law school. I actually lived out here in San Francisco doing AmeriCorps, and I saw some really what I could consider harsh injustices, mostly around poverty and access to food. And I thought, okay, well, I'll go to law school and I'll change that. I'll change the laws. I'll change the policies. And people said, you need to have a law degree. So I went to law school at CUNY, which is a very social justice focused law school. And then I went to work for Mike Bloomberg in New York as when he was the mayor, and I was a speechwriter in his administration, and I really enjoyed it. But I very quickly became clear to me I did not want to be a politician, and so I started my own business, and I did communications coaching and marketing, for many, many, many years. And in the last really 3 years, I've started a new platform called Love Letters to the World, and that is essentially focusing on telling good news stories on telling, on sharing stories of hope around the world, people, places, organizations. And we do it through film and writing. And I'm currently in San Francisco, where we've built a big 20-foot wall working with local artists, muralists, and philanthropies to build this beautiful wall that says, "I love San Francisco because," and it's an interactive art installation, and people can come write what they love about San Francisco. So it's a really sweet project. And then I teach a lot around multimedia, around storytelling, around branding, around leadership. I used to write for Forbes and Entrepreneur in their leadership columns. And I've done a Fulbright, and I just kind of travel around speaking and creating, and it's really fun. So I'm happy to be here today. And Jason and I were chatting yesterday a little bit on Messenger, and he was saying, I think leadership's an important topic. And I think that, from what I've seen from all of you working with so many CUNY students over the last decade plus, is how strong your leadership is and how amazing you are as leaders. So I think that to start this conversation, I'd love to hear from you, whether you drop it in the chat or whether you want to actually audio, speak. What is leadership? Why is leadership important to you? Number one, and what would you like to learn about leadership today? Honestly, if everyone can just drop that in the chat, it will give me a good sense of where we're at. What is leadership to you, and why is it important? And what are you hoping to learn today? I'll just sit here quietly and read your responses for the next couple of minutes. What is leadership? Why is it important to you? And what do you want to learn today? And you're also welcome to share it out loud if you prefer that. Sashi wants to use it for a future. Okay, so give me even more, get even more specific, Sashi. Like, what do you want to learn today? What would be most helpful? I'll give you some examples. Like, I want to learn how to set goals and actually do them. I want to learn. I have a group project, and I want to learn how to make sure everyone participates.
That one sounds it because we're having a lot of issues with that with my nursing class.
Okay,
And
so what would it be? How would you say it?
I don't know because nobody wants to participate. I feel like usually I'm like, oh hey guys, let's all work together so we can try to pass together, but I don't know if that's working.
So you want to inspire more participation?
Yeah, I don't know if maybe my personality is not making them want to come. Most people are pretty quiet.
All right, I'm just going to write this down. Inspire more participation. Most people are quiet. Okay. Jade says, to me, leadership is the ability to problem solve and collaborate with others on a goal. It's important to me because I'm the president of a club in my school, and I want to learn how to get everyone engaged and best help others. Okay, great. So these are similar threads. All right, we got some answers coming in. Thank you so much. It's really helpful. I want to learn to use my voice and not be afraid to go against the majority and stand up to others even when it's difficult. Great. Thanks, Jillian. Raja says getting the best out of others. Wonderful answer, Raja. And Raja, what are you hoping to learn today? Go ahead and keep dropping your answers in, guys. This is really helpful. Take a few more minutes and let people answer what they're hoping to learn today. Okay, we got another one here. Leadership, I've been told, comes naturally to me, but I want to learn to understand how to listen, encourage, and support people so they empower themselves. That's wonderful. Thank you, Anna. Being aware of any misconceptions I have about leadership. Okay, that's great. Misconceptions about leadership. All right, anybody else? These are wonderful. Give you just one more minute to drop in anything else you want. Okay, Anna also says misconceptions. Good. Going outside of my comfort zone. Wonderful. Anybody else want to drop in what you're hoping to learn today? We got some really good ones.
Hi, my name is Keisha Anderson.
Hey, Keisha.
Essentially, I didn't really choose this leadership role. I've always just kind of been that person, and now I'm just learning to hone the skills. And after hearing a bit more about your background, what I'm looking to gain is your perspective of leadership and see how I can match some of your keys with what I want to do.
Cool. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So this is wonderful. Thank you for all of your feedback and all of your answers. I think let's start with a quick kind of framework here around what I view as leadership. And I think that there are some really important questions that we should spend time on. And the beautiful thing about having these intimate settings is that I can actually get to your questions. Oftentimes I'm speaking in front of, 500 to 5,000 people, and it's harder to answer one-on-one questions just because of the nature of the size of the group. The group of this size, I think it's great because we can really actually answer questions like, Sashi, what do you think about your personality? Is, don't answer this yet, but these are the kinds of questions we can answer, we can get to. So I think when I think about leadership, I think about, let's call it three things, right? And I always like to give some sort of framework because that way you can apply it. And we're always ever evolving and changing. And so what you are doing today, you might not be doing 5 years from now, but if you can think about some sort of framework, it is helpful, right? So I think the first thing that you have to understand is, and you have to have clarity on, is what is it that you want to happen, right? So let's call that the first thing. What do I want as a leader? And that changes, right? Like that today it might be, I want to get an A in a class. Today it might be, I want to start an organization. Today it might be, I want to take time off. Today it might be a million different things. What do I want to have happen as a leader? Okay. And then the second question that you have to ask yourself is, when I think about it, and we'll do this in the context of if you're working with a group, because it seems like that's kind of a theme here. The second question is, am I setting everyone up to succeed? This is probably the place where most people fail as leaders, because what you want, number one, doesn't always match with the talent that you have. And so what most people do, okay, I want to build $1 million company. I'm making this up, right? But let's say that's I want to build $1 million business by the time I'm 30. Okay, that's fine. Well, there are certain cases where you can do that alone, but in this case, we're pretending like you're leading people. So if I want to lead people to build $1 million company, I have to, number one, take inventory of the people that I have. And then I have to understand what they're good at and what they're not good at. And my job as a leader is to make sure that I put people in position to do what they're good at as much as possible. I have watched leaders just beat the crap out of their employees to do things that the leader needs them to do, but the employee is simply not good at. I cannot build a design firm that sells $1 million worth of design products if all I have is accountants. I can't do it. But I've watched so many people. And what's cool is in your comments, you're saying, like, I want to listen to people. That's a really good thing, right? So the first thing is, what do I want? The second thing is, who do I have on the team? And what can I have them do that aligns with what I want, but also in a way that it honors their skill set? And the third thing that you need to do is test, experiment with different things in that. And then let's call it a fourth thing. You need to meet and communicate. Right? So what do I want? Number one. Number two, who's around me and what are their strengths? Right?
What strength is what?
And what are their strengths? Like, what are they good at? What about their skill set is going to get us closer to our goal? This is probably the most important one, including, by the way, yourself. Right? Including yourself. Because if you think, like, let's just say, I want to be a professional chef. I love cooking. I love cooking for my kids. I love cooking for my family. I love cooking for my parents. I love cooking for my grandparents. I want to be a professional chef. And then you get into the kitchen and you realize that you actually hate cooking for anyone that's not your family. Well, I said I wanted to be a professional chef, so I'm going to be a professional chef. But you hate it. And therefore, you start to hate your life after the third week. You're depressed. Your food's not inspired. But I set a goal for myself that I want to be. That's where the third thing is, right? Try it, test it, experiment, test. And then the fourth thing is communicate to yourself and do it honestly and bravely to yourself and to the people that you're working with. How's this working? How's this going? How does this feel? Am I excited about this? Right? So that's a really loose framework because we have so many different kinds of people. But I would love to hear from you. Let's role play a bit. Sasha, you want to role play with me? You still in this call?
Yeah.
There you are. All right, cool. All right, so let's role play. So,
Okay.
If we're gonna follow this 4-part framework, right? You're leading a group, I'm gathering.
Yes. The study.
All right, so let's do it.
Okay. See, I wouldn't know what to say. Hey guys, I want us to all get together so we can try to study together. I know this class is hard. I was thinking
Okay, so the group is so the group that you're leading is a study group.
study group. Yep.
Let's just keep framing it up this way.
Okay.
So
We got
the
the
group is a study group. All right.
Yeah. Okay, so the first thing is I'm shutting everyone up for the C ray, so we got the study group.
Yep.
So it doesn't have to be in any order, right? So like I figure
Well,
out
what's your goal? What's your goal with the study group?
my goal is to effectively get everyone to participate and have their own study guide for 2 chapters for each person.
All right, great. So you're clearly defining a goal, right?
Yeah.
And I do think it's important that we, so if we're going to do subsections of this, right? Like, what do I want as a leader? Well, a subsection of that is like a clearly defined goal. It's
Okay.
usually helpful, and it's not always necessary. Like, you don't always have to have a goal that's like clearly defined, but it's usually helpful. And it can be specific or it can be a little bit broader, right? So like your goal is I want everyone to have their own study guide for 2 chapters, very specific, right? But it could also be like my goal is that we all pass the class. My
Yes.
goal is that we get together once a month, and that's the only goal I have. My goal is that I write 3 pages a day, and I have no idea what it's about, right?
Yeah.
So just in this case, Sashi, I'm just giving more general advice for everyone on here because everyone's got a different thing. But
Yep.
that could be one thing. Like, what is the goal that we have, and let's clearly define it. So in your case, you got it. Next.
All right. And now I need to figure out what everyone's good at.
Yeah, and I think that in this case, right, like in a study group,
Yeah.
you have to not only figure out what everyone's good at, but you have to figure out what. You have to figure out what else. What do you think?
What myself and others can communicate? I don't know.
Well, let's think like what is the most basic human instinct?
Um
One of the most basic instincts, human instincts.
my instinct. I don't know. I don't
Survival. Like
Depends.
why are you here? Why are you all here? Like,
Oh.
the reason I asked you guys the first question, which is like, why are you here? It's because
Mhm.
I need to know. I'm eating my own dog food here, right?
Mhm.
Like, my goal for being here is I love CUNY, I love Jason, I love all of you, and I think it's fun.
Oh, it's a dressing class.
So my second piece is like to put you guys in a position to succeed in this workshop. I need to know why are you here? Before we even get to what you're good at, right? Why the heck are you all here? And I got a lot of great answers.
Yeah.
And now, because of those answers, we're doing this workshop like this. We're going to role play because you're like, I need to figure out like how to get people to respond to me better. Well, I can't really do that with like a bunch of PowerPoint slides, but we can talk. And this can be helpful for everybody because everybody's probably going through something like this. So the second thing is, before we even get to the strengths of these people, why are they here?
Okay.
And asking people that question, guys, is so golden. It's such a golden ticket to showing that you care. Why are you here? Why are you guys in the study group? I see your question. Keisha, give me 1 second. All right, so let's keep going, Tashi.
Okay.
So let's role play it out. Ready? So, okay. Hey, guys, I want us to each have 2 chapters, study guide, bullet pointed. Go ahead, keep going. What's next? What are you going to ask me next?
So, here's where I ask, like, would there be any problems for anyone as far as studying the book or reading the chapters and understanding anything?
Does
We
that
can help.
to the people in the group, does
Mhm.
that feel like Sashi is exploring why we're here?
Yeah, like with possible issues,
Just
maybe.
I think that you
Uh-huh.
just ask them,
Ask them. Okay.
right? So quick question. I know we're all busy, and I know that we all have a lot of different ways that we can study. I'm curious why you all decided to join the study group.
Okay.
What you might find is that somebody says like, "Ugh, I'm with my kid all day and I need an hour break." They might say like, I have severe ADHD, and if I sit at home, I don't get a single thing done alone.
Yeah.
They might say like, I think that you're cool and I want to be around you. And then with that information, you start to structure part two, which is giving people a chance to succeed based on their skills. You can do your thing, babe. That's it. Oh shit. 1 second. Did I mute you? I'm sorry. Hang on 1 second.
Uh,
Did I
yeah,
did I,
you.
mute-
I
did I
unmuted
mute
my.
you? I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Right? So you say like, hey, you're good. Do your thing. Like you can do the thing that you're good at. I want to help you do that.
Okay.
You feel me?
Yeah.
I want you to be free to do your thing. So why are you here?
Okay. And then when they all say, "Oh, we're all here to study and pass the class," all she does.
That's it. Then
Yeah.
then it becomes a lot easier to tell people what to do.
Okay.
The problem with most leadership is that you're telling people to do something they don't want to do, that they haven't signed up for, that they haven't agreed to, or, and this is what happens more often than not, that they're not good at.
I have a question though. Like, I feel like my class, like, okay, so like when we were all testing out to be in different study groups, like and stuff, I think I don't know if it's the personality, like I don't know if people or some people like me, I have this thing where I want to talk right away. And then some people they say whatever they say and then they just keep going and they don't want to hear other people. But how do you like incorporate with other people's personalities? What I think I'm having
It's a great question. It's a hard question. Like it's I don't think it's a question I can give you a specific answer to. I can tell you this. I think that you get better at it with time. So give yourself a break early on. You're already trying to do something great, which is bring people together to do a study group, right? That's great. That's an important thing. And you're already trying something new. So early on, and I think that I saw here in a chat that like someone was reading a book about how they enjoy these people's failures. I think that early on, everybody fails at some extent. Like I've put the wrong people in the wrong positions a lot, but I don't anymore because I've done it in the past and I failed and I realized this person, I'm asking them to work 12 hours a day and all they really want to do is like be at yoga at 5:30 p.m. And the minute that I'm like, hey, you know what? Like your workday ends right at 5 and I don't have an expectation that they do more than that, they're 9 to 5, they get more done in the 9 to 5 than they would than working 12 hours because they feel like you care. It's the most important part of leadership. Now, I'm not saying that you have to be a pushover and like let them do whatever they want. That's also not good leadership. You have to be firm, but you have to understand what people want. And by the way, the wants change. Oh, Sashi left. The wants change all the time. Sashi, you're back. The wants
yeah,
change
my phone died.
that's okay. The wants change all the time. Like some days, some months, my employees wanted work-life balance. Some months they wanted to make more money, which meant they would work more. It was Christmas time. They wanted to like I just had a situation with one of the guys on my team that was, I've never seen him work faster in my life. And then he let me know, yeah, my wife just lost her job. You got to communicate with your team, and you got to ask them, where do you feel like your strengths are being the most utilized? And where do you think that your strengths are not being utilized at all? Those questions really, really help with this second point. And so, Sashi, the answer to the question is you ask people. You ask people, how do you want to, you want to meet for 2 hours and talk the whole time? Are you better on your own? Like, what's better for your flow? We're seeing this a lot now with people that want to work from home. I'm fine with people working from home, but why do you want to work from home? And like, is that aligned with what I need? And here's the other piece. Here's the part about being a leader. Everyone has their desires and their draws and their thing, their reasons and their strengths, and they're all valid. And you get to decide if that works for what you want in point one. What do I need to happen here as your leader? What are the strengths and the places that you can fall into that? And if those match, great. And if they don't, then this is not going to work. And that's okay, because it's not going to work anyway. You're just going to have to find out 6 months to a year later, and it's going to be frustrating. It's kind of like dating in a way. Like, there's a lot of room for things to like mesh that don't really seem like they make sense. But then there's always like, there's usually a list of non-negotiables. I want kids. You don't want kids. This isn't going to work. This isn't going to happen. Like, I don't want a long distance relationship. You live far away. It's not going to work. Right. But I want kids in 2 years. You want kids in 5 years. Like, okay, like we can talk about that. Right. So you have to think about jobs almost like dating, in leadership, almost like dating. It is almost like dating, actually. It's kind of a song and a dance. Like, do you, oh, okay, you don't like this about me? Okay, cool. Can I change this for you? Sure. Can I change this for you? No. And that comes with more and more experience. Does that help, Sashi?
Yes, it does. I'm actually going to try it out.
Okay, and then 3 is experiment, and 4 is communicate. And probably like early on in my career as a leader, I communicated too much. Like, I was always worried about my employees' feelings, to the point where I just drained. I was totally drained. So now I feel like I have a much more delicate and healthier balance. I can sense when people are out of balance. And I let them be in it, or I'll just trust that it'll move through. And that's the other thing about leadership, is that if there's some friction every once in a while, it's totally normal. If things start to feel tense weeks and months in a row, then you really need to revisit. All right, and remind me, I'm sorry, I said Keisha. I hope that's not, I think I may have pronounced your name wrong, but can you tell me how to pronounce your name, your question, please?
Oh, my name is Keisha. You did get it right.
Okay, cool.
Well, my situation is kind of like past the communicate. So last semester, I did a group project where our professor essentially just dropped us in a group of people. And so what I did was I took initiative. I kind of was like, hey, can I get everyone's emails? Introduce myself, like told them a little bit about me, asked them about, what their majors were. Like, I did the open to start the communication. I asked them if they had any ideas for the topic, essentially the issue was, it seemed like the students that I was working with, they picked things that, one, they weren't very sure of, and 2, they just picked it to pick it, right? And I feel like one of the students, I feel like if he would have actually spoken up, maybe our topic would have been different, because like months second month in, now he's like wanting to change and be the director. But, it's like, how do you deal with that? Like people saying they want to do this. And then you're like, okay, so you're good at that. But then all of a sudden, in the middle of the work, they're like, oh no, I wasn't actually telling the truth. I don't even know what's going on. How do you, like,
That's
because I
tricky.
created an outline for the whole marketing research project because I've done them. I I asked to be the director. I didn't insert myself there, like I gave a few ideas, so it was just like I don't know what to do.
I think that it's a good question. I think diligence in the future, right? And this is what I mean by this is great that you experimented, you tried it, you tested it, and it turns out that if you were to do it again, you would do it differently. So the question then I'll just turn back on you. What would you have done differently? You lived it, it didn't go well. What would you do differently?
I think I would still like start the same way I did, but in this time try to get to know the group members a little more. So, because I do have a little bit more experience than most of the college students I'm around in like world stuff. Um, Maybe try to help them figure out which area would be better for them to work in. Because,
Good.
like, one of them had a learning disability and he picked something that actually uh, didn't help his situation. So, in the middle of the project during this whole little hurricane, I ended up asking one of the other guys who said he had no problem switching to switch roles, and that this person actually got more done. So I feel like just maybe the beginning, the opening of it, and then doing more clear communication during the weeks would possibly have been a better result. But then, life happens. Nobody wants to answer the phone.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. Like nobody wants to answer the phone. Yeah, I mean, this is I'm hearing is more and more common. Um, I think that you did fine. I think that the important piece here is that you learn to, the fun part about leadership, and this is, I always say this to people that are new in leadership, and leadership, by the way, isn't always like a project, right? It's like sometimes it's leading your family member to a place that sometimes it's leading a friend. I think real leadership is seeing things that other people do not see before they see it, right? And in a lot of ways, this is what I've kind of built a whole business around, which is I see things before other people see them. And that's great and that's fun. The difficult part is communicating that to somebody. And what I've learned is that the more difficult it is to communicate it to somebody, the more you should probably move on. And that's contrary to what I would have told you 10 years ago. I used to be like, push, 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 push. I've moved really drastically away from this push, hustle, like get it at any cost mentality, because I feel like there's been a shift of collective consciousness in a way because of the pandemic, that I think that people, for better or for worse, are doing way less of things they don't want to be doing anymore. And so I spend almost no time trying to convince anyone of anything anymore. That being said, if I see something that I think that I would really enjoy and it requires a little bit of visionary hand holding, I will make a lot of effort for that. So I think in your case with this project, like some projects you're not going to care about either, and that makes this a little bit less fun. But in the event, like, let's talk about things that we think that we love and that we really want to do.
The project was on a topic I love,
Okay,
and
so
a couple of them were pretty hype about doing it. So,
and a couple of them were not.
yeah, well, a couple of them, it was like the way they were raised, it was just a little uncomfortable, even though I did it on the cannabis industry in New York City. So, you know, you got to deal with generations. And so I understood. So there were like certain sections they didn't do, like the field work. A couple students didn't do the field work, and the students who were like, yeah, cool, we went out and did it. Yeah.
So, but what did that have to do with the dynamic of the group?
Because some students weren't willing to work, like do like the field work section, having to go out. We had to survey people in real time type things. And some students, because of like the way their parents believe, they were on the fence about it, but they didn't. It was like the lack of speaking up from the beginning caused like a weird little domino effect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like the place that you could grow is to get people more energized from the get, and making sure that the people that are in the positions that require the most energetic output are the most excited about the project. And having conversations about the biases from the beginning.
That's a good one.
I really think that this is a place that most, if you can figure this part of leadership out, I think this is how you become the best leader. Like, I think most leaders are scared of candid conversation. And usually it's because the most aggressive leaders are the most insecure, and they don't actually want to talk. They can't actually handle the feedback of the people from their team. So in your case, if you're secure in your experience with cannabis, right, you should let people know that. And if there are people that are insecure, you should make them feel like they're in a safe space. Because what's probably happening is these people with like their parents that are influencing, like, if your parents are still influencing your opinions and experiences as a grown adult, then there's some insecurity there, right? There's like something that you're still like, some wound you're still dealing with, which is like probably happens to almost every single person on the planet. But it doesn't mean you can't like address it. And it doesn't have to mean, you know, just like tell me about your family trauma, but it's like, I hear that you might have some biases here, and how can we use those biases to put you in the right position? So when I hear like people have biases, I would send them to the places where their biases are going to get destroyed.
I tried to do that when we did the secondary research. One of the statistical writers was the opposing side. And what I noticed when they submitted it to me, because I was the last editor, was they used a lot of those biased words. So I was like, hey, check out these references, these, be careful of these keywords, because we're doing a research project. We're not supposed to be on one side. So even though he was like against it, I know he said he learned like, oh, okay, I see where you were talking about. This was messed up. You not to use certain words. Yeah, because we don't want to come off as one-sided.
And that's a victory for you. Like, the fact that he saw it is a victory. And I bet if you did a tertiary, a third round of interviews, because you said you did secondary research, I bet if you did a third round, those words would disappear. And that's a win for you as a leader. But you have to recognize that. And then you have to tell him that. hey, this is a big victory for you. You've overcome a lot here. Because the other piece is like part of this communication, this fourth part of the framework, is that you have to build people up. Like if you're like beating the crap out of your team members and your employees all the time with a critical eye, that's not a fun, it's not a sustainable model. You have to say like, hey, I've seen a lot of growth in you. You started by having some biases that we talked about early on. I understand where they come from. Like it happens, parental bias happens, upbringing bias happens. And then you wrote, your research was kind of an indication of those biases. And we talked about that. And you were open to that, which is amazing. Like that makes me see how expansive your mind is. And in this third round, I didn't see a single, trigger word that you had included, which is a big deal for like you advanced your skills as a researcher. And you should be really proud of that. And in the fourth round, why don't you write something up? And I bet whatever he would have written up in the fourth round would have been 180 from where he started. And then you celebrate that. And you celebrate it in front of him and in front of the team. I celebrate people's wins all the time. I don't celebrate my own wins as much as I probably should, but I celebrate my team's wins all the time. We were always celebrating something. And it really matters. And you have to stay disciplined about why you're doing it and let people know that too. You're not like a big party thrower. You're staying disciplined because this is how research is done. And we just did it well. You understand? Does that make sense?
Yes, fabulous sense.
Okay.
It all got written down just now. Thank you.
Does that help?
Oh, you just helped a whole lot. I understand a few things, like looking back and talking to you about the whole situation of being the leader of the group and looking at the dynamic from your perspective. Um, yeah, moving forward, I know where I should pay attention to. Thank you.
That's great. Sure. And I think that you just made me think of something else too. And then I want to keep doing these role plays because I think it's really valuable. And everybody is like, some of the comments, I appreciate that this is helpful for you all. Thank you. There's also a leadership piece within oneself, right? That we'll probably talk about at some point today. And so as you're thinking about your questions and your role plays about leading other people, it also may be that you want to talk about, how do I lead myself? How do I lead myself places that I want to go that I've not been able to go to yet, with goals and dreams and visions? All right. So anybody else want to share their situation, like we're doing here in audio, in conversation? Sashi, how many cats do you have? Never a lonely moment, I guess. Who else wants to go here? I see a lot of people have written what they want to work on, so let's role play it. Don't be shy. Nobody else wants to go? Come on, guys. We got another hour. Maybe we don't have to role play your whole situation, but any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts?
I have a question.
Yes.
As a leader, right? When you are in the situation where, okay, so I'm just going to use myself and as a example. I got accepted to the National Nuclear Security Administration's internship program for the summer. And now I'm going to be like someone who's under leaders where I have to like become the follower. What would you say as a growing leader in the world are like good points for someone who's a leader who's switching to a role more of just paying attention?
Well, it's like, even how you asked the question, I'm not even worried about you, because the first thing I was going to say is just observe. So the fact that like your last two words were paying attention is like, I already see that you're going to be fine. Observe the systems around you. I would observe a few things. The first thing is observe the systems around you. Observe what is efficient, what is not efficient, and that'll become pretty clear to you pretty quickly. Observe the voices of the people that you're working with. And when I say voices, I don't literally mean voices. I mean observe like how do these people communicate? How do these people, what are the actual themes that they care about? How do they move in the world? How do they, like, just really observe the people, and don't lose your leadership. Don't be scared of being a leader. Don't be scared of shining. Don't be scared of bringing ideas forward. But it's almost like an inverse of the thing that we just did. So bring your idea forward, bring your vision forward. And now all of a sudden, like, the leadership team, right, is now, it's the inverse. So your idea is, why does the leadership team care about it? What have you observed that the leadership team is good at, right, that you can do for them? So it's all the same things that we just talked about in the first hour, but it's just like the totem pole order flipped. And now you're looking above instead of below to see what they need and how you can do it. But bringing ideas forward, and maybe it doesn't happen for the first month, maybe it happens on month 3, maybe it happens on day 3. I don't know. You get to decide. You get to feel into that. But bringing ideas forward as a leader, even though you're not the leader, is still a good idea. And that's how you're going to very quickly climb, especially if you've observed properly. Because if you can see places where things can be more efficient, if you can see places where things can be more visionary, and you can do them, or how to put together teams that can do them, then that's how you grow. That's how you grow in your roles.
Yeah, I want to say that is probably one of my strengths. I like to try to get to know people to see where they're good at things, because nobody's good at everything, and there's so many cool things you can learn or just have people help you with. So I'm always nosy.
That's good. It's good to be nosy, and it's especially good to be nosy to figure out where you can insert yourself to make things better. And that you should never be scared of presenting that. And if you if you present that in a way that's thoughtful, it's a strength. If you present it in a way that's tone deaf, then you risk getting written off a little bit sooner. Right. And so that's where the observation is important. Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes a lot of sense.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been really nervous about this. So
You're nervous about what?
just going. And I moved to New York City 10 years ago with like nothing and no education. So like to be in this point and to be accepted for roles that have esteem behind the name, it's just like I'm the first one in my family since my grandfather. It's just a lot.
What are you
know?
nervous about?
I
If
guess
you
the
really answered the question honestly, what are you most nervous about? What would the answer be?
Oh, the environment.
But what about it makes you nervous?
Kind of like, how did I get here type of situation. I'm just doing things I didn't even think would happen. So it's just like, oh, wow, I'm about to be in suits in DC.
Mm-hmm.
It's in fancy. you know?
Mm-hmm. And but what about that makes you nervous?
Okay, so it was like that interview. I actually was interviewed by 3 different departments. So I had 3 different shots of getting in. And my most notable interview, which is the sector I ended up picking, the chief of the department, she stated like she liked my background. And I feel like the interview just went so well. And we were talking about chair yoga, which has nothing to do with work. So it's like, keeping up this rapport that people already have of me when I get there.
Oh, that's
So
easy. You got
I'm
that.
more skills and like learn a bit more. That's why I signed up for this leadership training. I'm a member of the NSLS already in the
Mm-hmm.
city tech
Mm-hmm.
chapter. So, yeah.
When the probably the best advice I ever got when I was in the Bloomberg administration was I got this job. So I worked in Northern Manhattan. I worked in Harlem and Washington Heights for Bloomberg on his reelection campaign in his 3rd term. And I was in charge of recruiting volunteers, and I was in charge of basically giving them the training on communicating why. We would go out to the neighborhoods and talk to people about why they should vote for Bloomberg. And I was in charge of recruiting volunteers, and I recruited a ton of volunteers, and we trained them. And then Bloomberg won, and he said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "I want to stay in your administration as a speechwriter." He said, "Great, I'm going to pair you up with one of my commissioners." So I get a job with one of his commissioners, and I remember he said we had an interview for a position that didn't exist, and he said, "You're hired." And I said, "That's great, thank you." And he's like, "Don't thank me yet. Getting the job is not the accomplishment. It's what you do with the job that matters." And that was really powerful. Like, how many times have I celebrated the getting the job and then not really actually squeezing the lemon juice from it or squeezing the orange, Like, how many times do we just rest on the accomplishment of something without actually digging deep into what is possible because of that accomplishment? So I think that, that when you're telling me the story, that just came to my mind, that I think, and it's important, I think, for all of us, like, getting the job is not the accomplishment. It's what you do with it that matters. And that really resonated for me. And I try to give, Jason asking me to speak, I was excited. It's an accomplishment. I can put it on my social media. I'm going to speak at Hostos. I'm going to speak at CUNY. But is that the accomplishment? I feel like we live in a really headline-rich world right now, where the accomplishment is speaking at CUNY. That's the accomplishment. And yes, of course it's an accomplishment. Like, I had to do things to get there. But what really matters is, like, what do we do with these 120 minutes? What do you do with them? Right? So I think if you take that, my quick intuitive hit, just like vibing with you for the last 15 minutes, is that getting the job is not enough for you. It's like, what do you do with it? And the fact that your mindset is there, you're going to be just fine. And all the nerves they should be nervous about you, that you're going to take over. That's what they should be the ones that are nervous in the best way. And I think somebody wrote, Jason wrote, embrace the beauty of the nervousness. It's true. I think nervousness is healthy when channeled correctly. And I'm 100% certain you'll channel it correctly. And if you ever feel like you're not channeling it correctly, then a good exercise is like write down all the reasons why you think they picked you. And then you'll be like, oh, yeah, I got this.
I mean, one of them, they said they like my sense of style, but I don't.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, but that's not why they picked you. That's not why they picked you.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Thank you. That made me feel better.
Cool. Anybody else have questions? These are great questions, and I think that these are, see, like with the questions come themes that are really helpful for everybody, not just for people that are asking the question. Other questions? Just going to read your comments while you guys are thinking about questions. Anything at all? See if I missed any comments here. Okay. Well, I see here from Misha Bailey. Today's discussions, I hope to learn and develop my skills in achieving my goals. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about achieving our own goals. And let's talk about why don't you drop into the chat? What is the hardest thing? Well, let's do this. What is a goal you have for the new year? And what is a perceived complication or frustration with achieving that goal that you have? Something you want to achieve and something that you see that could get in the way of achieving that. Go ahead and write those two things in the chat. Take about 4 minutes, 5 minutes and do that. Good. The answers are coming in. Keep it coming, please. Great answer so far. Sashi, what would prevent you from putting in time for the gym, SLA, and studying?
This, like, I didn't realize how hard the nursing school was. The nursing school is really hard, and I barely passed the semester. Like, I passed by the skin of my teeth last semester, and I ended up stopped. That's only because I stopped going to SLA, I stopped going to the gym, but I still felt like, I felt like crap. I got depressed. I passed, but still, I want to make sure this semester I'm able to make sure I make it to the SLA meetings like I always used to do. Make sure I hit up the gym and also make sure I'm doing my studying and stuff.
Yeah, that's important. I'm gonna come back to you because you said something that made me think of something. Okay. Just want to get these answers, and then I'm going to come back to you. Okay. So I'm going to just read some of these. Angelise says, my goal is putting myself out there more to do things I enjoy doing. Complication would be not being good enough or being embarrassed by others. Okay. So let's see. Angelise, are you okay with me asking you a question on audio? Okay, cool. So, what is something that you, when you say, I want to put myself out there more, doing things I actually enjoy doing, what is one of those things for you? And if you could just unmute, I think you're muted. So if you're trying to answer, I can't hear you.
Hi. Um, I think for me it would be I don't know. Like I'm part of church, but I don't really do as much as I should because I feel like people won't listen. Um, yeah, I feel like I just don't have that leadership in me to actually motivate other people, not to just do what I say, but to motivate them to do stuff that they would want to get better at, if that makes any sense.
Sure. What would you like to motivate people in your church to do?
Maybe be more active, or because they say they want to be active, but they're not active. So it's not like I want to force them to do something that they don't want to do. It's just I want to motivate them to do something that they said they wanted to do.
Exactly. And how do you think you could do that?
Being more outspoken, or taking more leadership roles, or making more announcements, going to more events or talking to people. But I don't really enjoy talking to people, so
Okay.
yeah.
Well, so this is interesting. This is an interesting conversation. So here's what I hear, right? And I'm gonna deconstruct my own method of questions. What do you want to do as a leader? Angeli says she wants to be more active in the church, getting people to be more involved because they said they want to be more involved. And then I hear like, this is, so what is Angelisa's skill set? Well, she doesn't like talking to people. That's fine. So that you're already kind of, I don't want to say sabotaging yourself as a leader, but if you want to get people to get more active in the church by talking to them, and you don't like talking to people, you're making your life kind of complicated, right? And this is maybe why things aren't happening as much for you. What if you wrote people letters? What if you every week said, like, I'm going to be here if anyone ever wants to talk, and then you just go about your week, and then maybe somebody shows up? What if you write blog posts for the church? What if you write articles for the church? What if you do photography? What if you do things that inspire people? What if you play music? What if you so what I'm trying to say here, and I don't know if any of these ideas are exciting for you, and they're totally fine if they're not, but what I'm saying here is this is a wonderful example of how we as leaders get to think about different ways that we can do things that we want to do. So if your goal is to get more active in the church and you don't like talking to people, find ways that you can get more active in the church without talking to people, and or get more active in the church and find new outlets of inspiration that people will connect to, that will make them want to come. I used to go to church because I like the music. So maybe the reason that people that say they want to go to church aren't going to church or aren't being active in church is because there's something missing for them. Maybe it's music. So maybe you organize the best musicians to come and play on a Wednesday night somewhere, and you do a Bible reading or whatever. I don't know. Like I'm making this all up, but think about what are some other ways that I could get involved in the church and be more active doing something that I like, which is going to pretty much guarantee that you get out there and do more of it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm just going to keep reading these other ones. Yeah. And Jillian says you can do something small. I think that's really true. I really like doing something small. Like that is and then you build momentum and the small things become bigger things. It's a really good point. Working myself and my book. Great. I want to work in the research department at the NYPL main library branch. I don't have much correlating experience, but I like books more than people. Well, I think yeah, so okay. There's a lot of good answers here. I'll come back to that one too. Recruit new folks for SLA and the challenges, the new way that people are doing things. I hear you there, Jay. Okay, so let's run down these real quick. How many time? We're good. Okay. Sashi, let's go. I'm just gonna run down this list real quick. So Sashi says, trying to make sure I put the time in for the gym, SLA and study. You said that you barely got by, you barely passed, and everything else kind of fell to the wayside.
Yeah.
What is your plan this semester to make sure that doesn't happen?
My plan was to start using my planner more, write in my planner, and make sure I'm in the school Monday through Friday.
What is pulling you away from what last semester threw you off?
I guess I wasn't studying how I should have studied from the beginning. I waited till like 2 days or 3 days before the test, and that's when I realized, well, nursing school is different from your prereqs, and you can't do the same thing you're doing. So that messed me up.
So you kind of you figured it out. Like
yeah,
you know where you went wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you're good.
Yeah, I hope. Hopefully, my plan goes as planned, but thankfully, like what you helped me with today, like with the study group, I can probably get us to study more because like we have so much stuff to read. It's like too many chapters that we can't read all those chapters. And this semester we have 2 classes of hard classes. So it's like I'm trying to get the class because it seems like the class is like there's people who they know they passed, they study fine, they're good, but then other people don't want to, nobody wants to study with each other. So hopefully I'm gonna try using what you said and then I can get people to study together.
Okay, good. All right. Thanks, Sashi. Okay, so let's go to Jade. I want to get an internship, but I'm worried I don't have enough experience. Jade, where do you want to get an internship?
I want to do any work in sustainability. And then really work in sustainability or construction.
Okay, and when you say you're worried you don't have enough experience, what is that? What does that mean?
Well, I'm like a sophomore. I've only had one internship with the MTA and one before that back in high school. That's actually where I wanted to start my major from.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like, I have one thing that I worked at like basically 3 years ago at this point, and another thing that isn't completely related to my field, but it's still sort of useful.
Yep.
So I'm just bad in interviews in general.
You're bad at interviews?
I get so nervous and I don't know what to say, and it's just a bunch of questions and I don't know how to answer them.
Okay, so I have a couple thoughts for you. So the first thing is think about transferable skills. Resumes are the resume is becoming probably less and less relevant in the traditional sense of like, you're saying it was 3 years ago. It's like, okay, I think that's still fine. And I think that when you think about resumes and when you think about these jobs that maybe are a little bit like out of reach or that aren't so correlated to the experience you've had, think about transferable skills, right? So, for example, when I was working for Bloomberg, I was a speechwriter in his administration. And then I started my own business and I started talking to tech executives like at Twitter, at LinkedIn, at Salesforce. And I had never worked in technology. I had only worked in politics and social justice, right? And so when I was trying to pitch them my services of communication, of marketing, that on my resume, there wasn't a single tech company that I had ever worked with. But my transferable skill was that I used to have to take 100 pieces of paper and turn it into a 3-minute speech. And I would tell tech executives, like, this is what you need to do for your products. You have so much information about what you're doing, about your technologies, about your products, but no one's doing it no one's sharing the story in a very succinct way. So hire me to help you figure out how to pitch your products and hire me to let me make you videos about your products. And they didn't care that I didn't have any tech experience because it was like, oh, okay, you're good at synthesizing and distilling a message. That's enough for me. So I feel like you could do the same thing. Like, figure out what you did 3 years ago and what you did in your last internship that are relevant to the thing that you pick that you want to do next, whether or not you have enough experience or not. In terms of the interview, I used to do a lot of coaching around public speaking. I used to help people with their public speaking. And people were very scared of public speaking. Similar to what you just said. Like, I don't know what to say. I freeze. What I found was really helpful for people when they didn't know what to say and when they were freezing is have 2 or 3 stories about your experience and your background locked in, like that you could do in your sleep. I used to remember when I would do these messaging and speech writing for people, I would say, there's 100 pieces of paper and they would say, like, here's what I need the story to say. It's a little bit crazy to think about, but this is how politics works in a lot of ways. They would tell you, like, here's a story I need you to write, find it. And I think that interviews are similar. Like, I think that you kind of know you have the advantage, and this can maybe make you feel better about like easing your nerves. You have the advantage of knowing what you can say about yourself. So kind of whatever question they ask you, you can have a sense of a place that you can refuge to. And if you're really nervous, okay, I know if I get nervous, I have these 2 or 3 stories that I could tell that are related to this job that I'm comfortable saying. And I find that really helps people.
Well, since you've done like mock interviews, do you have like any advice as to like not like how to not come off as like arrogant too? Because I was actually applying for this other program at my school,
Yep.
and I was told afterwards I got into the program. It was something similar to this about leadership.
Yep.
And I got into the program, but afterwards the person who interviewed me said that I came off as arrogant, like I had assumed I had already gotten into it.
Mm-hmm.
And like looking back, I guess there's like 2 or 3 points that seemed like I did. And I guess some of the questions I had asked afterwards made it seem like that way too. But I just like, what would be what would be something that makes you think that?
That makes me think that you're arrogant?
Yeah. Or that would make you that would, like, if you interviewed someone, that would make you think that they were.
Why would they even say that?
I don't know.
I think
I had asked like questions like, oh, because there was workshops throughout the semester. And I asked like, oh, do you know when the workshops are going to be throughout the semester? Like, will there be a schedule, or will people just be notified like shortly before it happens?
I think
that was something.
I think, Jade, I think if 100 people tell you that you're arrogant after interviewing you, then you should worry about it. I think one person's opinion of you doesn't really matter. Honestly, I think that like if this is a recurring theme that you get over the next 30 years of your life, then like it's probably worth exploring. One person could have been having a bad day. One person could feel like they were arrogant to someone else. The person that interviewed you could have just had their partner shit on them. Like you it's so mind-blowing to me that people create their entire identities based on one experience. And so like don't do that. That's my advice. If you've heard for 100 years now that you're arrogant, then maybe if the people that love you and know you the most, like if the 15 people in your life that really get you say, Jade, you're pretty arrogant in interviews, then we should talk about it. But if that's not the case, I really wouldn't spend one more second of my life thinking about it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And because that's the kind of stuff that gets in someone's head, and then it's like, am I being arrogant? I think the fact that you asked me how to not be arrogant is kind of like, they say if someone asks if they're a narcissist, they're probably not.
Yeah.
You're probably not arrogant if you're worried about coming across as arrogant.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. Jason, we can talk. Raja, being a better communicator and being able to get my points across to others effectively. This is good. Raja, can I ask you a question? Why do you think it's hard for you to get your points across effectively?
I think for me, it's like I'm more naturally a listener, and
Yep.
like being able to like understand people and analyzing, and like for me, I think I can improve more on like communicating, and like getting things, like being able to persuade others, and things like that.
This is where I think your strength and your weakness can marry. So you said, I'm more of a listener than a communicator, right? And I think that the fact that you're a strong listener is going to be your greatest gift to be a better communicator. And here's what I mean by that. I think that almost no one listens to anyone closely anymore. And if you are a close listener, right? If you're a close listener and then you use that in your communication, it's a superpower. So I want to encourage you to flip your programming a little bit mentally. I want you to release the narrative that you are only a listener and not a communicator. I want you to now say that you are a master communicator because you are a great listener. And here's how that looks. When you communicate to others in a way that shows you that you've listened, in a way that shows them that you've listened to them, they will listen to you 100 times faster than they will listen to anyone that does not have that skill.
Okay.
So, for example, you might say, well, let's just do like a role play together. Like I'm trying to think about how we can do this in a way that would be helpful. Okay. So give me an example of something where you have to lead in your life right now.
Well, I'm a part of one of the clubs in my school,
Okay.
and I think I might end up taking over like one of the leadership roles, but I'm
Okay.
not there yet. So like I want to
Let's
know.
let's just say that you do take it over. What's the club?
It's an economics club.
All right. So you're in the economics club, right? And what is your responsibility as the leader of the economics club?
I haven't taken any of the roles yet.
But let's just make something up. We're just gonna role play.
Vice president.
You're the vice president, and as the vice president, what is your biggest responsibility?
It's like managing the club and like what activities to do for people and things like that.
And give me an example of an activity that we could do.
Field trip.
Great. So you're my leader. I'm in your club. You're my vice president. Economics club. You're the vice president. You win. And we're talking about field trips, right? So like lead the meeting about the field trips as if you were the vice president.
So like communicating like to them about like what's gonna happen.
Whatever it might be.
I wouldn't know what to say.
So let's just say like we're gonna do a field trip. You know, Raja, what's really interesting to me is I'd love to know what are the economics of cleaning up the beach. Like I went to Coney Island the other day, and there's so much trash. There's so much trash there. And I wonder, I don't know, there's just a lot of trash there. And I love the ocean. There's a lot of trash. And I don't know. Anyway, so right, that conversation happens, and you hear that, right? And now you're the vice president of the economics club. And if I'm you, because I'm a great listener, I say something like, you know what I've heard is that a lot of people in this group like the beach. Roger likes the beach. Jason likes the beach. Brian likes the beach. Anna likes the beach. And you guys have been telling me that you see a lot of trash there. So I think we should do a field trip to the beach, and we should pick up the trash, and then we should investigate what the economic ramifications are for pollution in our city. You guys into that? Everyone's going to be excited.
Yeah.
And guess how you knew that? Like you came up with an idea, but that was because you listened to what I said.
Yeah.
And now they're going to be excited to be under your leadership because they know that you listen. So how to effectively communicate is simple. You already have the superpower, my friend. The listening is the hardest part.
Yeah.
It would be much harder for you if you're like, I don't know how to listen, but I know how to talk. I'd be like, oh, I don't know, Roger, that's harder. But you telling me like, hey, I'm worried because I'm a good listener, but I'm not a good communicator. That's an easy fix, brother. That's an easy fix. You just lead with your superpower. And that will, and the more that you just watch people respond. They'll be so excited that you have been listening to them.
Okay.
Does
Thank
that
you.
help?
Yeah.
Good.
That helped a lot.
Trust me, listening is a superpower. And if you're good at it, you are at the top. You're already at the top. You just have to figure out how to easily, for a way that feels nourishing for your system, communicate what you've listened to. And you'll figure that out. Just try it.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Tisha, I want to work in research department at the NYPL main library. I don't have much experience. So why do you want to work there?
I like research and I don't really like people. And there's lots of books there more than there's people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be fun.
But go deeper for me. Like that's kind of obvious, right? Like go into a place of like why the library?
Because I like to learn. And there's just so much information in the main branch of the library.
And what do you like to learn about specifically?
I don't have a main specific. Okay, maybe history.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say you don't have a lot of experience, what other experience do you have that could be connected to that? Like
I was thinking,
this internship that you're about to do, right?
yeah.
How do you connect that? What was the internship again?
This is they don't correlate.
No,
Well,
but
maybe they do.
watch. This is important for everybody that's watching. You're gonna say they don't correlate. I promise you they correlate. And this is what I really want people to understand.
I'm gonna be.
Everyone's putting themselves in a box. Everyone's putting themselves in a box that because I did this, I can't do this. If in order for me to do this, I have to do this first. I want people to break out of these boxes. So just play with me here. Tell me the internship you're about to do.
It's a project management internship with the cybersecurity sector of the National Nuclear Security Administration.
Okay, so that is a bit of a stretch, but let's play with it. What are you going to be doing there?
So I've been reading the onboarding. They just sent it to me. What it's essentially talking about is I'm going to be one of the business people working with the cybersecurity sector under the head department. I don't remember what everything says.
Yeah,
It's
you're
so
doing great.
long. It's a lot that they just wrote in this. But essentially I'm going to be working in working on a project on the management sector. So I'm going to be learning about how the government teaches businesses about utilizing cybersecurity and the paperwork behind that. And
So stop. How the government teaches cybersecurity, government teaches businesses cybersecurity and business and the paperwork behind that. Okay, so watch this. These are big institutions, right? Governments, libraries. You're dealing with educating people within these institutions, libraries, businesses, governments, and you're using paperwork, which is research, in encoded context, which is books. Like it's absolutely connected. You help people sift through complex data to drive decisions. That's what the public library does. At its best, that's what it does. It's the same thing. And the reason that I wanted to do this with you is because if I can do this with a nuclear engineer, whatever you do, to a New York public library, you can do it for anything, my friends. Anything. So please do not feel like because you do one thing and you want to do something else and you don't feel like they're related, that you don't go for the thing that you want. And please don't feel that because you've had experiences that seem unrelated, you cannot talk about them, and therefore you don't feel like you have experience, and therefore you don't go do the thing that you want to do. I promise you with everything that I have that there's always a connection. So nothing that you're doing is ever a waste of time because it's all getting you closer to the thing that you want to do. The only waste of time is when you decide that they are unrelated, like you were about to do, that they're unrelated. They're not. None of them. Nothing in life is unrelated. I promise you I can make a case for anything. So go for the thing that you want and then do the same thing that I just did, which is like be relentless about how it relates.
I wanted to say for the students who are talking about finding internships,
Yep.
I really like Handshake. I learned about Handshake through the City Tech Professional Development Center. And you go to info sessions, you can just sign up for different info sessions. There's so many different things.
What is Handshake?
Handshake is like LinkedIn, but for college students. It's like another job site. They do event hosts, info sessions, internships. I get a lot of responses on Handshake too. So
that's a really helpful resource.
Yes.
All right, cool. So get your internship rocket and then go work at the library. All right. Okay, Cynthia says working on myself in my book, getting out of my comfort zone. Great. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Write a page a day and have no judgment about what you write. Is leadership also nonverbal? Is it that people will observe you despite your exact despite your words. Leadership is also nonverbal, of course. It's leadership is nonverbal. Listening is nonverbal. Like Raja's superpower is nonverbal. This is so much of leadership is nonverbal. Listening, watching, quiet feedback, definitely. Jillian, I want to hear more about your love letters to the world and what motivates you for this and what your leadership skills in this. Sure, Jillian, I can tell you quickly about that. I just want to make sure there's more. Handshake is great. Okay, good. So man, handshakes all over the comments. I didn't even know about it. That's cool to learn about that. I didn't know about handshake. I'll tell you quickly about
a handshake.
What's that?
I never heard of handshake before. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, that's great. It's a smart concept. LinkedIn for college students. So I'll talk about love letters to the world just for a couple of minutes, and then if there's any other questions, please drop them in, and I'll answer them in the remaining time. So love letters to the world is, so I had this creative agency in New York, and I enjoyed the challenge of the demand of the work, but I didn't enjoy managing a lot of people. So I had my team at its biggest was 13. There was 13 of us. And I just found that probably what I shared earlier, I probably got communication fatigue with the amount of over communication I was doing with the team. And I also just really care about people. And so when I had 13 people working for me, I really cared about all of them and their personal lives. And I was finding that I was getting almost no creative work done. I was doing a lot of HR really and management of people. And for a lot of people that they love that. I don't love that. I like the creative part of it and the strategy and the dreaming and the creation. So I let that go. I let my office go, and I moved to more of a remote contractor position in hiring people on a contractual basis as freelancers instead of having full-time employees. And I think that when I went to Uruguay in 2020, and I had the intention of staying for 1 month, and the airport closed a week before my flight back to New York because of the pandemic, and I ended up staying there for 1 year. The airport opened 10 months later. And that was the birth. At the end of the year there, I wrote a love letter to the country of Uruguay, and that letter went totally viral, like completely viral. CNN came and did a story about me, and I was on all the morning TV shows in Uruguay. I realized that this was a very special thing. I received like thousands and thousands of messages from people around the world about how special the letter was. And so then I started this platform, Love Letters to the World. And it's essentially a multimedia platform where we travel around the world and we shoot short films and we write stories. And I'm in San Francisco right now doing a big art installation. We built a 20-foot wall with a muralist, and people have the ability to come by and write what they love about San Francisco. So it's really kind of, how do we use the places of the world for people to do, to showcase people doing amazing work, but then to create more joy and to create more positivity and to create and to get people excited about community creation. And so that's where Love Letters is. We've been to New York. We did a series of films in New York. I did a documentary in Washington, D.C. I've been in Pennsylvania for the last 6 months, Guatemala, San Francisco, Aruba, and we're looking, forward to a great year ahead. But I think the skills that I use in that are many. I think the biggest skills are, I've kind of figured out that the partnership is really important. There are people that will come to me and want to do stuff that I just intuitively don't feel like it would be a good fit. And so I don't do it. this point in the, it's really in its infancy. It's only a year and a half in to everything. So I kind of get to hand pick a little bit who I want to work with. And I have a beautiful network around the world. And so I'm taking my time with it. So I think that like discernment around who I work with, I think that so often we want to go so fast and we want to go so big. And there's this, that's why I love the person that said, like, start with small acts of leadership. And I think I do believe in that as well, because there's this whole, like, everything has to be scaled and big and global. And it's like, not really. I mean, there's a lot of beauty in community, and there's a lot of beauty in like the Leadership Academy. Over the years, I've just gotten to know so many people, and these are smaller, 20, 30, 40, 50 people group that Jason has been able to really impact, and that you all have been able to impact with your lives through these, more intimate communities. So I think that the partnership matters. That's a skill set that I've developed. I think that the creativity matters. I've been, working very hard as a creator for 12 years now, making films and writing and creative strategy and trying to bring a lot of beauty in the world. And that, I think, is a day-by-day skill. Every day I try to create, and every day I try to get a little bit better. But I think that the biggest leadership lesson that I've learned, and I've given a couple of TEDx talks, and I've had some big stages, and you always think that this is going to be my moment. You always think, I got the TED talk, this is going to be where I make it. I got, I'm in front of 5,000 people. This is the moment that I got the meeting with the CEO. This is the moment that my life is going to change. And what I've really found to be the truest truth for me is that it's never really one big moment. It's 1,000, 1,000,000 little moments. It's when you show up day after day for yourself and for your community and for your dream and for your creative vision. And it's not, maybe it's not as sexy as you think it was going to be. And maybe it's not as glamorous as you think it was going to be. I remember when I first started my business in San Francisco 12 years ago, I had a spreadsheet for the first, I think, 18 to 24 months of my business where I wrote down every single dollar that I spent. I even think I wrote down to the penny. Today I spent $5.82 on food. And I did that for a year. I mean, I did that every day for 18 to 24 months because I didn't have a lot of money in my bank account, and I did not want to run out of money before my dream happened. And that, I think, is the clearest example of what's real for me. Like, it really is every single day showing up for yourself and for your craft and for your dream. And knowing that when you do that enough, and if you're good enough and you care enough, then things have a way of working themselves out. I always tell people the universe favors the bold. I really believe that. I really believe that if you have something you want to do that you believe in and you take strong action towards it every single day, it'll all work out for you. So I think that that's my greatest leadership lesson. And I appreciate the question, because I think I've said that before, but I really feel it. Like, I almost just got emotional there saying that. Like, I really feel that truth. And I think that that's the last piece that I'll say about this is, like, when you're being true to yourself. When you're being true to your skills. When you're being true to your abilities. And I think that the more and more I get to travel the world and meet people, the more and more I realize when someone is true. And I think that, and this is where I'll close my remarks for today and then leave it up for questions. I think that, and I say this every time, and I mean it every time, I think that you have a leader in Jason that is so true. And it's why I'll jump through hoops at any time I can for him, because I so deeply, immensely admire and respect the work that he does and the disposition that he has and the generosity of spirit and skill and giving and genuine care this man has. And I think that in a world where everything is so transient and fleeting, when you find someone like that, and in your case, you all have access to him, and I promise you, you have access to him because I've watched now for over a decade of people that have reached out to him and that he has helped in tremendous ways. His whole life's purpose is to be there for you. And when he says, I want to grow SLA, but people do things differently, like he's asking for help. And reach out to him and let him help you, but also figure out ways to bring your people to SLA. Like you want to talk about a little active leadership, bring one student with you every Friday, or help somebody sign up for SLA, because it's a life-changing organization. It really is. It's like I've seen it. People have written me over the years about how important this program has been for them. And so I think that you want to know what leadership looks like, you got one right in front of you every day that you want it. And his name is Jason. And I really believe that. I would never say something I don't believe. I really believe that. And he is the epitome of a good human being and a good soul and a wonderful leader. And so tap into that and help him and help yourself by letting him help you. And I think that this is the last thing that I want to say about this idea of mentorship and this idea of like, I think it was Keisha that was saying you're going into a different role and you were a leader and now you're not going to be a leader. I don't think that ever stops. And I think that the same is true for mentorship. I think that when you're seeking a mentor, you want to figure out ways to do nice things for them too. And that's the balance of life is important. I think the give and take, la ida y vuelta in Spanish, like it's important to be able to balance, to be able to throw and catch, to be able to push and pull, to be able to dance and sit. Like these balances in life matter. And I think that you are at your optimal place when you are in that balance of I am motivated and motivating. I am creating and I am quiet. I am like the yin and the yang, right? Keeping that some level of that balance is important. It's why Sashi feels like you fell off a little bit this semester. Like it was all about school and I barely passed. And I didn't have gym and I didn't have community. I didn't have friends. I didn't have family. That's because you're out of balance. And it's something to pay attention to. And it's important. And you can find your way back, you know? Raja is like, I can't communicate because I just listen. That's a story you're telling yourself. Find the balance. Find the balance of like, I'm listening and now I communicate, right? And so we can all find this balance in some way. And I think that good leadership requires it. And don't buy in, especially in New York. It's hard, I know, but the more time I spent outside of New York, the more I realized like this thing of like, hustle 24/7, I'll sleep when I'm dead. That narrative is not helpful. It's not helpful and it's not healthy. And one of the things that I'm really trying to do more is I'm trying to rest more. I create a lot. I push a lot, but I'm also trying to get my feet in the earth. I'm trying to look at the sun. I'm trying to see the sun set. I'm trying to do things. And so I really hope that this shows you that leadership is also radical acts of self-care. Leadership is also helping a small group of people do something hard. Leadership is also saying like, I can listen and speak. Leadership is also saying like, I'm not going to let you tell me what my dream is. And I'm not going to let you tell me I can't do it. You being society, you being your mom, you being your jealous partner, you being your kid, you being whoever it is. Like we get one shot at this thing. We get one shot at this thing called life. I don't know what happens after. I have no idea, but I'm not willing to like leave it to chance that I get something after this. This is it. If I get something else, great. If I come back as a tree, great. But like right now, I care about what I do every day. And I feel the same thing that for you guys. And I think that that is the greatest act of leadership that you can do in your life, is to find something you care about and dedicate yourself to it. And if you get a chance to do that, hold on tight, because I'm telling you, it's the best. It's the freaking best. And if you don't, then find something else that you can hold on tight to and that you can really, really dedicate energy to, for real, that in a way that feels good for your soul. And you'll know it. And if I can be helpful at all in helping you find that, or hold that, or discover that, or explode that, or squash any doubt that you have in your mind about that, because I'm telling you right now, you can all have that. I'm here. I'm an email away, and I really thank you guys for being here with me today.
Thank you, Brian.
So thank you for the kind words, Brian. And before Keisha has her in camera, I'm gonna let you ask the question. I just wanted to say something because I want to highlight the fact that I do know that some of you are not from Hostos, and they're here and participating, and I value it completely. I just want to give you some reflection. I try to support anybody who comes to these things. I said it earlier in the week. If you need a letter of recommendation down the road, you're going to be an email away from me. I want to make sure that you understand that these are important to me for 16 years to do these, to have whatever groups we have in a room. And your contribution, whatever college you're from, is really important. And just to highlight that, last year we had students who participated in the virtual sessions with us, who went on from BMCC to become the president of York. We had students who participated in previous years who became chairs of USS. We had people who took on leadership positions at their colleges, who went on to private colleges and universities with a letter of recommendation from me, who took on leadership roles there. I'm not boasting in any way, shape, or form. I'm just trying to let you know that our journey might seem short in a 4-day span over January, and I may not be easily accessible by walking into my office that the hostel students get to do, but I'm also not going to hide away from you. So if you need me and you want to write to me, you have a question, you need to connect with somebody, you can always do that. And you will see me at places. I work with the directors on your campuses, the coordinators on your campuses. They know me. I'm the secretary of our committee this year, and we participate in the Emerging Leaders Conference. We participate in the New York State Model Senate, which is coming up. We have a lot of different things that we do throughout the course of the year. So you'll be able to find me. We've had some of the directors pop in during this week. I know Ray Volel from Queensboro has been here a couple of times. So I just want to say that. And Keisha, I'll let you speak as I put my email here in the chat.
So I want to thank you so much, Jason. Brian, I kept looking at your name and wondering why. I used some of your Forbes articles during the time I was getting my business degree at BMCC. I have heard your story on CNN. One of the funniest articles that I did like that you did on Forbes was the influencers to watch. So this whole opportunity is super cool. I got to speak with somebody I've actually learned some things from. Jason, so far I've came to every meeting and I've had a great time getting to know different students' perspectives and different leaders, and I just wanted to say thank you.
It's amazing. Thank you for saying that.
Yes.
You're very welcome, and I'm glad. I also want to shout out Brian here, right? We had, some of you came on after we started. We had somebody who was supposed to be here, a former hostel student who I value. He wasn't able to do the workshop today. I reached out to Brian in between 2 workshops yesterday and said, Brian, I have an emergency. Are you available tomorrow? He's like, sure, whatever you need. And that's the kind of person that he's always been. And so I have always valued Brian for it, much like a lot of the people who you're going to meet this week. And I value them intensely for the contributions they make. In a lot of situations, The folks who we chose this week were people who are not going to be easily accessible, like to do in person. Brian just happens to be in California. He did do an in-person workshop earlier this year. Uh, but he's committed. And what I'll say about Brian is I've had people reach out to him about jobs. I've had people reach out to him about entrepreneurship opportunities. I've had people, contact him, and he's done his own work, right, in staying in touch with people through social media and through other sources. So he is a great resource. So, now you have him. You can always reference it. I was at the winter workshops with you and Jason, and so I'm writing to you, and I need an idea, or I need support, or give me, you have a contact in this industry. And what you look at if you go to the Brian Rashid Global page is how diverse his network is. I mean, when you hear somebody work for the mayor of New York, but he's also, traveled the world and has these relationships in different societies around the world. He's referenced in previous sessions, he's referenced people he knows in the Dominican Republic. He's referenced people that he knows in different parts of the world. So this is a great resource, and utilize him. His willingness to support you is evident by his own words, but also by his actions that you'll see as we move along. So thank you again, Brian, for doing this, for hopping on, for being my emergency. What it was? It used to be like that thing, my emergency phone call.
I'm your SOS, and I'll be your emergency phone call anytime, Jason.
Thank you so much, Brian. And then I also want to thank all of you. Some of the contributions today were really important. A lot of people, even if you didn't contribute, I think you probably heard some things that would benefit you. The fact that you're here at a leadership development sort of conference for this week, these workshops, suggests that you want to have a leadership position somewhere in your life if you haven't already assumed one. And so hearing a lot of what Brian said today, I think is beneficial, whether you're going to be the leader of a club, or whether you're going to go into the SGA, or you're going to go to, serve in USS, or if you're just going to be part of a leadership program on your campus, whether it's NSLS or SLA or whatever other programming that you have available to you on your campus, or when you go to your next level. These are skills that are tangible, meaningful, and have value for your professional career, but also for your leadership endeavors. And so, Brian, thank you for that, and everybody who contributed and gave support to the conversation, role played, and went through the steps. Thank you for that. And I enjoy it. I enjoy sitting here and listening to these conversations. I left on a high yesterday after Christina left. Even though I had to drive through 2 hours of pouring rain, I was like super positive about that. I have a couple of hours before our next workshop, but I'm super positive right now. So keep it up. It's always about, we always had this conversation, whether we were in person or we were there online. Who's ever in the room is supposed to be there, and who's ever in the room is getting what it is that they're supposed to get. And believe me, people have spoken to me about this year in and year out, said, I remember that workshop. I remember that moment when I role played with Brian, my scenario, and it changed my life. I remember that conversation we had with this person, that person. I remember reading that comment or hearing that student talk about their experience, and it changed the way I looked at things. These are valuable. They're valuable to me. So I hope they're valuable to you. I don't want to impress upon you that they're valuable to you. I'm saying they're valuable to me. That's why I do them. That's why we organize them. And why I appreciate that we have people here participating in them. So again, thank you for being here. Brian, thank you again for being here. Enjoy the day. I hope you get some rest. We got you up way, way early in the morning.
It's all good. It's all good. Thank you, guys.
But I'm gonna.
Now the sun is out, Brian.
Yeah, I know, right? Now it's out. Well, it's cloudy, but it's sunny. It's out.
At least it's warm there, right? This is like no cold. Anyway, I want to honor everybody's time. I hope I see you at the remaining 3 workshops. Thank you everybody for being here, and Brian, we'll be in touch, all right?
Yeah,
Thank
you guys.
you. Bye, Jason. Bye,
Thank you
Brian.
so much.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Happy Wednesday.
Bye.
Have a great day.
Hello.